The wind blew hard through the broken streets of the alien city. Dust covered everything: shattered buildings, silent machines, and empty markets. The ground was cracked, and the sky was gray. No birds, no music, just the sound of footsteps. In the dirt, a small alien girl walked alone. Her skin was pale blue, her feet bare and bleeding. She wore a long torn shirt that dragged behind her in her arms. She held something wrapped in old cloth, a baby. Very small, very still. The girl's eyes were large, glowing softly, full of fear and hope. At the same time, she walked past busy traders, who shouted prices and moved fast. She whispered softly to each one, "Please, just milk for my sister, please. I'll pay you back when I'm grown." Some laughed, some ignored her. Some pushed her away. No one listened. She didn't ask for food for herself, only milk. Only for the baby. The girl's name was Lyra. She had been walking for 3 days. She had not eaten anything since the last dry piece of bread she found in an abandoned home. But still, she kept walking, still asking, still hoping. Her baby sister, Nixie, had not cried in hours, which scared her even more. She was too weak to cry now. Lyra walked into the human zone, past alien guards and broken signs. Here, the humans were resting, laughing, and drinking. Soldiers in armor sat around eating warm food from metal packs. A dog barked nearby, then went back to sleep. No one noticed the small alien girl standing at the edge of the market fire. She took a few steps forward, then stopped. One man noticed her. He was tall, in simple clothes, not in armor. His name was Jacob, a human medic off duty for the night. He saw the girl standing like a ghost in the dust then, silent, strange, at first. He thought he was imagining it, but then he saw her mouth move, barely milk. "Please. For my sister," she whispered. Jacob blinked, confused. He had seen many things in this war: dead soldiers, broken cities, destroyed machines. But this was something different. A child asking for milk, not for herself, but for someone else. Lyra took one more step, her legs shaking. The baby in her arms made a soft sound, then fell quiet again. The crowd around her kept laughing and talking. No one cared, but Jacob stood up slowly. The girl looked at him with wide, glowing eyes. Her lips moved again, slower this time. "I'll pay you back when I grow up." Then she fell. Her knees hit the ground first, and her body followed. Still, she did not let go of the baby. She held her sister tightly. Even as she fainted in the dust, Jacob ran to her side, pushing past a laughing soldier, who said, "Leave it, man, just a street rat." But Jacob didn't listen. He knelt down, touched her neck. Her pulse was slow, but there, the baby was breathing, but barely. He gently pulled the cloth away and saw a tiny alien child with sunken cheeks and closed eyes. He picked them both up carefully, one arm under Lyra, one holding the baby close. Her skin was warm with fever, and her body was light as paper. Jacob looked around. No one else cared. No one else moved. He carried them away, walking fast past the gates, through narrow halls to his quarters. Inside, he placed Lyra on the bed and laid the baby next to her. He grabbed a bottle of human baby formula from his emergency kit. He wasn't sure if it would work, but he poured a little and touched the baby's lips with it. The baby moved, drank, made a soft sound like a sigh. She was alive. Jacob stared at the girl on the bed, her chest rising and falling slowly. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she here alone, carrying a baby? He sat down on the floor, leaning against the wall. The room was quiet. The war far away for a moment. He whispered to himself, "Just milk." She asked for just milk. The screen fades to black. The silence lingers, and the questions remain. Who is Lyra? Why is she being ignored? And what secret is she carrying in her arms? The story had just begun. Jacob sat beside the bed where the alien girl lay sleeping. Her arms were still wrapped around the baby. Even in sleep, she looked so small, even smaller than human children her age. But there was something strong about her. Something quiet and deep. She had asked for milk, not for herself, but for her baby sister. And now? Jacob couldn't stop thinking about her words. I'll pay you back. When I'm grown, he had seen pain before, on the battlefield and in refugee zones. But this girl was different. She wasn't crying or begging. She had come with a purpose, with love for someone even smaller than herself, and that love had brought her to the feet of strangers, asking only for milk. A message came on Jacob's communicator. It was his commander, stern and cold. Report says you brought in unauthorized alien civilians. Confirm, Jacob hesitated, then typed back, yes, 2 minors, 1 critical. Return them to Border Patrol. The reply came fast. Street kids are sometimes armed or infected. High risk. Jacob looked at the baby, now breathing softer. The bottle almost empty. He looked at the girl Lyra, he would later learn. Her blue skin was bruised and her feet were cracked, but even in pain, she looked peaceful while sleeping near her sister. He stood up and walked to the door, locking it, then turned off the wall scanner. No one's taking them, he whispered. To himself a few hours later, the girl woke up. She sat up fast, panic in her eyes. Her arms searching blindly for her sister. Jacob stepped forward and gently placed the baby in her arms. The girl relaxed at once and hugged the baby close. She's okay, Jacob said softly. The girl nodded but didn't speak, her eyes studying him like a wild animal, unsure if it was safe. Jacob knelt beside her. My name is Jacob, he said slowly, pointing to himself. Then he pointed to her. You. She hesitated, then whispered, Lyra? He smiled a little. Lyra? That's a strong name. She looked confused, but nodded again. Jacob pointed to the baby. Her name. Nixie, she said, holding the baby tighter. Jacob poured more milk into the bottle and handed it to her. Lyra watched carefully, then fed her sister gently. Her hands shaking a little, the baby drank again, this time with a bit more strength. Lyra gave a small smile, the first one Jacob had seen, over the next few hours. Jacob tried to make her comfortable. He brought clean cloths and water to wash. He gave her soft food, which she refused at first. Wanting Nixie to eat first, Jacob had to pretend he had too much food, just to make her accept a few bites. They didn't talk. Much Lyra didn't know enough English, but she watched everything with sharp eyes. She was learning quickly. At night, Jacob sat at his desk, watching the 2 girls sleep. He opened his personal log, typing quietly. Found 2 alien minors today. One is a baby, very weak but stable. The older one, Lyra, is ... different. She's afraid, but also brave. I've never seen a kid act like this. She's not broken, just tired. I don't think she's safe outside. I think someone's chasing her. Suddenly, there was a knock on his door, loud and sharp. Open up. Security scan detected unknown biosigns. Jacob stood quickly, grabbed a small scanner and pressed it against the wall. It showed 2 guards outside, ready to search the room. He looked back at Lyra and Nixie, still asleep. Then at the small emergency panel under the bed. He pressed it, and a hidden drawer opened. Come on, wake up, he whispered to Lyra. She woke fast, used to danger, and followed him without question. He gently placed Nixie in her arms, then led her to the crawlspace under the floor. Stay here, quiet, okay? He said. Lyra nodded, holding Nixie close again. Jacob stood up and opened the door. The guards walked in, scanning everything, just checking. Metaquan said, no one's allowed to bring in outsiders. The other added. Jacob smiled. Fake and tired, Just me and my cough, he said, holding up an empty medical mask. They scanned, got nothing, and left. Jacob closed the door and let out a breath. He opened the floor again and helped Lyra back up. She didn't speak, just looked at him with wide eyes. He smiled and said, "Safe now." Lyra didn't smile, but she placed her hand gently on his arm for 1 second. Then went back to caring for Nixie. Jacob sat on the floor again that night, thinking this wasn't just about rules anymore. This was about life, about two little lives that had no one else. And he knew something deep in his heart. He would protect them, no matter what. The next morning, sunlight touched the corner of the room. Jacob had barely slept. He sat in his chair, watching the two girls on the bed. Lyra was awake already, holding baby Nixie gently. She looked at Jacob and then looked away, shy, but not afraid. Jacob smiled. "Good morning." Lyra didn't answer, but she gave a small nod. Then she looked down at Nixie and whispered something in her own language. Jacob couldn't understand it, but it sounded soft. Like a prayer, he stood up and brought some food-warm broth and fruit paste. He placed it beside the bed. Lyra looked at it, then at Jacob, as if asking permission. Jacob nodded. "Eat. It's okay." She picked up the spoon and began feeding Nixie first. Only after Nixie was full did she eat anything herself. Jacob was amazed by her, so young yet so focused on protecting her sister. He wondered how long she had been doing this. Days? Weeks? Longer? Later that day, Jacob brought a small drawing tablet. He couldn't speak Lyra's language, and her English was limited, but maybe pictures could help. He drew a stick figure of himself and wrote Jacob underneath. Then he handed the tablet to her. Lyra watched the screen for a long moment, then slowly drew herself smaller than him, with big eyes, and wrote, "Lyra." Then she drew a tiny baby and wrote, "Nixie." Jacob smiled. "Good." Then he pointed to the side and asked, "Home?" Lyra paused, her face becoming serious. She began to draw slowly a tall building, a round sun, two adult figures, one holding her hand, then a black cloud above everything, and fire, people running, her parents falling, buildings breaking. Jacob leaned closer, reading the story through her pictures. Her home was destroyed, her family gone, and she had escaped with Nixie. He pointed to the fire and asked, "Who did this?" Lyra's hand shook, and she drew red eyes inside the black cloud, sharp and glowing. Then she drew a small figure like herself, hiding under rubble. Then a long journey, walking through ruins, sleeping in cold places, asking for food. Always holding the baby. Jacob's throat tightened. This girl had gone through more pain than most soldiers. He didn't know how she had survived, but she had. And through it all, she had protected Nixie. That evening, Lyra sat near the window, looking at the sky. Jacob sat nearby, working on his datapad. Suddenly, Lyra stood and pointed at the stars. "One? Come," she said quietly. Jacob looked up. "What do you mean?" She pointed again. "Bad. One find." Her face looked pale, her eyes wide. Jacob grabbed his scanner and checked the Scano alert. No movement, but Lyra seemed sure. "Shadow. It's red," she whispered. Jacob froze. Was she talking about the same red eyes she had drawn earlier? He activated a private shield on his room and locked the door again. Something told him Lyra's words weren't random. She wasn't guessing. She could feel something coming. That night, Lyra had a nightmare. She cried in her sleep, muttering in her language, holding Nixie close. Jacob sat beside her, gently touching her shoulder. She woke with a gasp, eyes filled with fear. "Don't take her." "Please," she whispered. Jacob said softly, "You're safe now. No one's taking her." Lyra looked at him, breathing fast. Then she looked at Nixie, who was still asleep, peaceful and warm. Lyra finally relaxed, but tears rolled down her cheeks. Jacob handed her a cloth to wipe them. She took it, hands trembling, and wiped her face slowly. He didn't ask more questions. He just sat there, letting her feel safe, even for a moment, the next day. Jacob tried something new. He connected his datapad to the base archive and showed Lyra pictures of different alien species. He wanted to find out where she was from. Lyra pointed to one photo, her finger resting on a tall, glowing figure with soft blue skin and silver markings. Then she pointed to herself and said, "Mother." Jacob looked closer. The species was listed as Mirani, extinct, or lost tribe, long ago. They were known for peacekeeping and deep mental abilities. But most were believed to have been wiped out during the first Galactic purge, decades ago. Now Lyra's words made sense. She wasn't just an orphan. She was a survivor of a forgotten race. That's why someone was chasing her. That's why she could feel danger in the sky. And that's why her sister, Nixie, was so important, possibly the last Mirani child ever born. Jacob leaned back, trying to breathe. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. This was history living. History, asleep in a bed in his room at night. Jacob sat outside his room, his hand over his mouth, thinking, should he report this to the council? Or would they try to take Lyra away for testing, or worse? He knew the answer already. He couldn't trust anyone else with them. He looked through the door window. Lyra had fallen asleep beside Nixie again, their small bodies close. Even in sleep, she was guarding her sister. Her eyes slowly opened, as if she knew he was watching. She looked at Jacob not with fear, but with quiet trust. Jacob nodded to himself. He wasn't going to let anyone hurt them, no matter what happened. Next, the air was heavy inside the human base, even though the walls were made of metal and concrete. Jacob could feel something wasn't right. He sat at his desk, reading the same message over and over again. Unauthorized life forms detected on base. Internal scans starting soon. Jacob's heart beat faster. He looked at Lyra, who was sitting on the floor with Nixie in her lap. She was humming a soft tune, a lullaby in her own language. The baby's eyes were closed, her breathing light and steady. Lyra looked up. What's wrong? Her English was getting better. Each day she listened, watched, and learned fast. Jacob didn't want to scare her, but there was no time to lie. They're searching the base, Lyra, looking for you and Nixie. She froze, her face going pale. No. We hide, she whispered, holding her sister tighter. Jacob nodded. Yes, but not here anymore. We have to move now. Jacob opened a hidden drawer under the bed and pulled out 2 small gray suits disguise uniforms for base workers. He handed one to Lyra and gently wrapped Nixie in a medical bag with warm cloth inside. Lyra didn't ask questions. She moved quickly, her hands calm but her eyes sharp. Jacob led them into the hallway, walking like a tired mimetic returning from duty. No one paid attention yet. They moved past rooms, security cams, and sleeping soldiers. Every sound made Jacob's heart jump. The buzz of a door, the soft beep of a scanner, all felt too loud. They reached the lower levels, cold, dark, and mostly unused. Old storage rooms and broken bots lay everywhere. Jacob pushed open a door with a red warning sign. No entry, hazard zone. Perfect, he thought. He brought them inside and closed the door behind them. Lyra looked around. Where are we? Old med lab, Jacob said, shining a small light. Dust covered everything, and broken machines sat in the corners. But one thing was strange, a door at the back, made of black glass with alien symbols glowing faintly. Lyra stepped toward it slowly, her eyes wide. She reached out and touched one of the glowing marks. Suddenly, the door responded, sliding open with a soft hum. Behind it was a room filled with strange lights and humming machines, very old, yet still alive. Jacob stared. How did you do that? Lyra looked confused. It Feels like home. They entered, and the door closed behind them, sealing tight inside. The room lit up, scanning both of them with a soft blue light. A voice spoke in a language Jacob didn't understand. Lyra whispered the words back, slowly. Like she remembered them from long ago, one of the machines beeped and projected a screen. It showed images of Mirani people, cities in the sky, and then fire, war, destruction. It showed Lyra's face, then Nixie's. With symbols blinking underneath, Jacob could read only one word. Keyholder. His mouth went dry. These two weren't just survivors. They were the last living pieces of something powerful. Something lost. Jacob heard a sound in the hallway, heavy boots. Metallic clicks. Soldiers were getting close. He pulled Lyra behind a large scanner and whispered, "Stay here, don't make a sound." He moved toward the front of the lab, grabbing a wrench as a weapon, just in case. The door beeped. Someone was trying to open it. "Medic, Jacob, this is security patrol," a voice called out. "We've detected movement here. Open the door." Jacob stayed silent, breathing slowly. The scanner inside the room flashed red for 1 second. Then green again. The door stayed locked, unbreakable by standard force. System denied access. A second voice said, annoyed, "We'll try override." Jacob rushed back to Lyra. "We need to leave now." Lyra looked at the machines, then at the wall beside them. "There," she said, pointing to a small panel. She pressed her palm on it. And the wall behind her opened on escape tunnel. Narrow but real. Jacob was stunned. "How do you know all this?" Lyra answered quietly. "I don't know. I just do." They crawled through the tunnel, Jacob going last, carrying Nixie carefully behind them. The door to the lab was finally forced open, but by then, they were gone. The tunnel led them out. Near the base's hangar section, empty ships, spare parts, and low traffic safe. For now, Jacob knew he didn't have long to make a plan. But one thing was clear. They couldn't stay here any longer if the military found out who these girls were. They'd never be safe again. Lyra looked up at the stars through the ceiling glass. "Where do we go?" she asked. Jacob followed her gaze, thinking hard. "There's an old refugee shuttle in the repair zone. No one uses it anymore." Lyra nodded. "We fly." "Yes," Jacob said. "We fly far away, somewhere no one will find us." Lyra held Nixie closer and whispered, "Okay. But we stay together." Jacob nodded. Always the danger had not passed, but now they were no longer waiting for rescue. They were taking the first step themselves, and Lyra, the girl who once begged for milk, was walking toward a destiny far greater than she could imagine. The old transport ship shook as it flew through the sky. Its engines coughed and sputtered. But it kept moving. Jacob sat at the controls, his hands firm, eyes scanning the screen. Behind him, Lyra held Nixie close, her eyes fixed on the stars outside the window. They were finally out, but far from safe. The ship was unmarked, slow, and barely armed. But it had one thing going for its stealth. Jacob had shut down all signals, all pings, all connections. They were flying blind, but invisible. "Where are we going?" Lyra asked quietly. Jacob turned back to the outer belt. "Near the neutral zones, there's a mining colony there, forgotten by most. We can hide for a while." Lyra nodded, though her face remained tense. She looked at the baby in her arms. Nixie was asleep, the breathing steady, but the marks on her skin, the soft glowing patterns, they were getting brighter. Jacob noticed it too. "Is that normal?" he asked. Lyra looked down and whispered, "She's waking up inside." A few hours later, Jacob noticed a flashing red light. The ship's system had picked up something strange, a signal deep in the code. It wasn't coming from outside, but from inside the ship, encrypted, ancient, and alive. He ran a scan, but The ship didn't respond the way normal human systems should. Instead, the lights dimmed, the engine slowed. A strange voice filled the room, not from speakers, but from the walls themselves. The voice spoke in soft syllables, strange but gentle. Lyra stood up, her face pale. It knows us. Jacob blinked. What do you mean? Lyra moved toward the center of the ship, where the floor panel began to glow. A symbol appeared like the one in the hidden base room. The starflower, she placed her hand over it, and suddenly, the ship stopped moving. The ship shifted, transformed. The lights changed color, turning blue and gold. Hidden walls slid open to reveal smooth alien tech beneath the rusted surface. It wasn't a human ship at all, it was old Mirani tech, hidden under a human shell. A ghost ship from the forgotten. Days waiting to be found. Jacob's mouth fell open. This isn't possible. Lyra touched the console, and it responded to her instantly. Data flowed across the screen: maps, messages, names, codes, and history. It was a ship built to carry royal children during the fall of the Mirani race. A rescue ship, but it had never been used, until now. Nixie stirred in her sleep. The marks on her skin glowing brighter. Suddenly, a soft hum filled the room and wrapped around her like a blanket. The ship was scanning her. Not to harm her, but to protect her. She was the reason it had reactivated. She was the heir, the code hidden in her blood. Jacob leaned against the wall, feeling small in this moment. This was never about saving 2 orphans, he whispered. Lyra turned. No, it wasn't. Nixie carries something old, something everyone wants to control, but she is not a weapon. She is a hope, a seed. The ship's system confirmed her words. A hologram appeared, an image of the Mirani Council. They spoke through recorded voices, explaining that the last royal child had been hidden from the purge, protected by one guardian who would awaken with her. That guardian was Lyra, though she had never been told. She had known only pain, hiding, hunger, and fear. But deep inside her, the code had waited quiet, waiting for this moment. Jacob paced the room, trying to think, if others find this ship, if they know what Nixie is, what you are, they'll come with fire, not kindness. Lyra nodded. I know. They already did. She looked at the ship's map, which showed red points, enemy scans searching nearby zones. They're not far, she whispered. They're looking for her. And they're getting close. Jacob looked at the control panel. What can this ship do? He asked. Lyra placed both hands on the glowing surface. The ship responded instantly, shifting again, this time into full power. Weapons appeared, shields activated, engines roared silently. It was no longer. Kit had remembered its purpose. This ship is a guardian too, Lyra said, but it can't fly alone. It needs us. It listens to our will. Jacob stared at her, not just a girl anymore. Not just a scared sister. She was waking up, like the ship. And deep down, something inside Jacob shifted too. He wasn't just protecting them anymore. He was part of something greater. Something that could change the galaxy's future. Lyra turned to him, her voice calm and steady. We don't run now. We prepare, and for the first time in days, Jacob didn't feel afraid. He nodded. Then, let's begin. The ship flew through deep space like a ghost reborn. Now fully awake, it moved smoother. Faster, stronger. Its engines no longer shook. Its walls no longer groaned. Inside, everything had changed. Lights glowed in soft gold. Screens spoke in ancient symbols. Jacob sat in the command chair. But the real captain was Lyra. She stood at the console, guiding the ship not with buttons, but with her touch. She had never been trained. Never taught, but still, the ship obeyed. In the sleeping room, baby Nixie lay in a special pod the ship had made. The pod scanned her body gently, feeding her, healing her, protecting her. The glowing marks on her skin were brighter, now moving like waves with every breath. Jacob peeked in quietly and whispered, "She looks peaceful." Lyra nodded. "The ship is helping her grow faster, stronger. She's not just a baby anymore." But peace didn't last long. The radar picked up a warning: enemy ships entering the outer belt, a fleet of bounty hunters working. For the black market syndicates, they weren't part of any government, they were worse. They wanted the girls for one thing: to sell, to study, to destroy. Jacob gritted his teeth. "They tracked us." Lyra looked at the star map, pointing to a dusty moon nearby. "Hide there," she said. "The ship can blend in with the rocks." Jacob didn't ask how she knew. He just trusted her. They steered the ship toward the moon and landed silently behind a crater wall. The ship folded its wings and shut down lights. Becoming like a stone, they waited. Jacob watched through the hidden camera feed. The hunter ships flew close, scanning, firing small bursts into the rocks. One hunter ship hovered above them, unmoving. Lyra placed her hand on the ship wall and whispered in her language. The ship became colder, quieter, completely invisible. The hunters flew away, fooled for now, but Jacob knew they would come back. He turned to Lyra. "We can't keep hiding forever." Lyra looked at her hand, which still glowed faintly from touching the wall. "No," she said. "We stop running." "I have an idea." Lyra opened the ship's memory bank and began searching through old star charts. She found something deep in the archive: a forgotten beacon. Far on the edge of human space, it belonged to the Mirani, once a gathering place for leaders before the fall. Now it was nothing but ruins, floating between suns. But she believed something was still there. Something waiting. Jacob frowned. "That place is dangerous. Uncharted. Maybe cursed." Lyra smiled softly. "Or maybe it's home." She looked at Nixie, still glowing in the pod. "She needs to awaken fully, and I think that place will help her." Jacob placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "You're risking everything for her." Lyra looked into his eyes and said, "She's all I have left. And maybe all this galaxy has left too." They powered up the engines again and jumped through hyperspace. The journey was long and quiet. Lyra spent time by Nixie's side, telling her stories from their past. Jacob sat at the back, listening, sometimes smiling, sometimes wiping his eyes when no one looked. Then they arrived. A broken starbase floated in darkness, half buried in asteroid debris. But as they got closer, the ship responded. Again lights blinked. Panels opened. It remembered this place. 2. They landed gently on the surface. The station's doors opened by themselves. Dust falling as they passed through. Inside, glowing pillars lit a path, old but not dead. They followed the lights to a round chamber, with a circle in the center, like a cradle of stars. Lyra stood in the middle, carrying Nixie in her arms. The circle lit up, scanning them both. Then the wall shifted, and from above, a beam of soft light fell onto them. Lyra placed Nixie in the beam, whispering, "It's okay. You're safe." The room began to hum low, steady, like a heartbeat. Nixie floated slowly, glowing brighter. Images flashed around the walls: memories, futures, possibilities. Jacob watched in awe as Nixie opened her eyes fully for the first time. Not the sleepy eyes of a baby, but eyes full of light and wisdom. Something ancient lived within her now. Lyra stepped back, her face full of tears, not fear, but joy. "She's awake," she said, barely a whisper. But then the station shook. The bounty hunters had found the missiles hit the outside walls. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered. Jacob ran to the console. "We need to go." But Lyra didn't move. She turned to Jacob and handed him something: a glowing stone from the circle. "She's connected now. This stone will guide her path, even in darkness." Jacob saw her eyes. She had made her choice. "No," he said, "not you two." Lyra smiled softly. This station was made to protect her. But someone must stay to lock it. Take her. Protect her, she said. The floor opened beneath Jacob, lifting Nixie and him into a transport pod. He screamed her name, but it was too late. The pod launched through the station's escape. Root behind him, the station collapsed inward, becoming a sealed tomb of light. Lyra stood in the center as the walls closed. Her last words whispered through the air, "I will always be with you." The pod flew silently through space. No sound, no heat. Just cold stars and endless darkness outside the glass. Inside, Jacob held the glowing baby Nixie close to his chest. His arms shook not from fear, but from what he had left behind. Lyra was gone. She had stayed behind, locked inside the ancient station to save them. Her last words still echoed in his mind. "I will always be with you." Jacob stared at Nixie's face. She was quiet, eyes half open, small hands glowing softly. But there was something different now. Something deep inside her had changed. She was no longer just a baby. She was the last heartbeat of the Mirani. The pod reached the edge of the outer belt and sent out a quiet signal. It was a hidden code Jacob had placed weeks ago. One person could read it. A friend, someone he had once saved on a faraway planet. Someone who now owed him a favor. Soon, a cargo ship arrived, plain and old. But inside was a hidden room safe, quiet and warm. The captain, a woman with gray hair and bright eyes, took one look at Nixie and said, "I don't want to know what she is, Jacob. But I'll get you somewhere safe." Jacob nodded. "Thank you, Mara. I'll never forget this." They traveled for days through hidden lanes, avoiding patrols and scanners. Jacob spent most of the time beside Nixie, watching her sleep. He missed Lyra every second. He missed her quiet strength, her brave eyes, her soft voice. And more than anything, he missed her songs. The way she hummed to calm Nixie down. Now, he hummed the same songs, not as perfectly, but with care, and sometimes he thought he heard a second voice, soft and far away. Maybe hers, at last. They arrived at a distant moon, cold, empty, forgotten, but underground. It had an old earth-built shelter. Unused for many years, here, Jacob decided to stay. He rebuilt the systems, warmed the rooms, stocked the food. He made a home not grand, not bright, but safe. He raised Nixie there, day by day. She grew fast, faster than any normal child. Her eyes sparkled with colors when she was happy. She could move things with her mind, light up rooms with her laugh, and even calm storms with her tiny hands. She didn't talk much at first, but when she did, her first word was not Jacob or food. It was Lyra. Jacob smiled with tears in his eyes. Yes. Lyra loved you very much. Nixie placed her small hand on his chest and whispered, "She's here." Jacob nodded. "I know." Years passed. Quietly, Jacob grew older. His beard turned white. Steps slower. But Nixie remained young and glowing. Sometimes she would sit outside the base and stare at the stars. She would say, "The stars are singing." Jacob would reply, "Then let them sing, little one." That means someone is listening. One day, Nixie stood at the edge of the rocky cliff and said, "It's time, Jacob. I hear something calling me." Jacob knew what it meant. The Mirani race may have been destroyed, but through her, they were rising again. Her time to hide was over. Her time to lead was coming. He took her hands in his. "You're ready, Nixie? Just promise me. You'll carry Lyra's love with you always." She hugged him tightly. "I carry both of you, always." She built a beacon using the same crystal Lyra had given Jacob. The moment she placed it in the center of the shelter, a wave of light shot into the sky. It wasn't loud or violent. It was gentle like Lyra's touch. Like her voice, a signal not of war, but of return from distant parts of the galaxy. Ships changed course. Eyes turned, hearts stirred. The lost memory of the Mirani awakened, and those who believed in peace began to move again. Jacob watched from the hilltop. He saw the light rise and felt Lyra's presence in the wind. He whispered, "You did it, little one. Your sister saved the stars." And then he sat down, eyes closed, face peaceful. His time was done. But his legacy remained, through Lyra, through Nixie, through every heartbeat of hope in the cold galaxy. Years later, in stories told across systems and worlds, people spoke of a glowing girl who came from nowhere. A girl who didn't fight with guns, but with light. A girl raised by a human and protected by her sister's sacrifice. She carried a single message wherever she went. We are not weapons. We are not prizes. We are not forgotten. We are children of stars. And we have come home, and somewhere beyond the reach of maps. In a place where only the brave walk, a quiet song still floats in the stars. A girl's voice, singing for her sister, and the galaxy listens.